we have been able to call upon the most endless resources of skill, patience, perseverance, ingenuity, and back-breaking hard work, which we never knew we possessed.
On Christmas Day, 1830, a small steam locomotive named the Best Friend of Charleston began the first regularly scheduled passenger train service in the United States. The ensuing century would see the explosive growth of the country as railroads helped build a nation and its industries while also moving people faster than ever before. On June 17, 1953, 123 years after the Best Friend of Charleston began passenger service, steam engine number 6330, operating on the successor railroad of the Best Friend of Charleston, pulled into a rail yard in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where its crew extinguished its fire for the final time. This was the end of steam on the Southern Railway. A few short years later, steam disappeared from every railroad in the country as the industry modernized to keep apace with customers' expectations.
This is the American dream of freedom on wheels.
Soon, interstates and air travel made passenger trains largely obsolete, and the railroads discontinued many of them, depots and stations falling silent as their passengers disappeared. As the popularity of passenger trains and steam locomotives waned, a few people living in Chattanooga decided it was time to begin preserving the machines that had been so instrumental in building our nation. In 1961, they formed the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum and began the daunting task of obtaining and restoring railroad equipment that would recall an era when trains helped move a country. The Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum began with just a few pieces of donated railroad equipment and a rented location near downtown Chattanooga. In their first years, with virtually no funding, the members worked tirelessly to secure donations of obsolete passenger cars and locomotives so that they may be preserved. In 1964, the museum acquired former Southern steam locomotive 4501, then in operation on a small railroad in Stearns, Kentucky. This would quickly become the museum's best-known locomotive, as it was restored to service and run on special Southern Railway excursions. The Southern Railway's successor, Norfolk Southern Railroad, continued the program until 1994. Thousands of passengers came to know of the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum through these trips behind the 4501. By the late 1970s, the museum had moved into its permanent home in East Chattanooga, along the right-of-way of the former Southern Railway main line, and they began rebuilding the tracks, installing a turntable for turning locomotives, opening the Missionary Ridge Tunnel, building a new bridge over Tunnel Boulevard, and constructing the Grand Junction Station. Funding remained difficult, especially during the explosive growth of the late 1970s and early 1980s. The museum declared bankruptcy to avoid foreclosure and quickly tightened its purse strings to begin paying off the debt. By the 1990s, the museum was debt-free and thriving. TVRM continued restoring and operating steam and early diesel-electric locomotives to pull our many excursions. With new trips and new passenger cars and locomotives to add to the collection, TVRM reached a wider audience with its efforts to preserve our nation's railroad history. Today, TVRM is 50 years old and enthusiastic about the next 50 years. From a short back-and-forth trip in the earliest days to over 100 miles of track today, TVRM continues to expand to reach an ever-growing audience, to show future generations how the past made the world in which we live a past move forward by the railroads.